the Weekly Show with David J. Maloney.
This week, David chats with Emmy-nominated actress Lee Purcell.
And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome, everyone, to The Weekly Show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. On tonight's show, we've got Lee Purcell joining us once again. Lee is a two-time Emmy-nominated actress whose roles stretch across the decades and involve some of the biggest and brightest names in show business over the past 40 years. From her breakout role on Adam at 6 a.m. to the cult classic Big Wednesday to her Emmy-nominated roles in Long Road Home and Secret Sins of the Father, she has graced us with some fantastic performances while acting alongside the likes of Michael Douglas, Orson Welles, Nicolas Cage, Dennis Hopper, Chadwick Boseman, and so many more. Back with us again tonight is the wonderful Lee Purcell, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Speaking of directors, another name that sticks out to me on your CV is Sidney Poitier, who directed you in Stir Crazy. I mean, what a luminary of film and trailblazer, I mean, for all people of color. Are there any memories that stick out to you, particularly about Sidney?
Oh, sure. You know, I just did a small part in that. In the opening, I had a very memorable scene with Gene Wilder. Yeah. And so how that happened, and then you'll see about Sidney. So I auditioned for a different role that I wasn't right for. Yeah, I just wasn't. But I auditioned for it as the role that really the lead, wonderful actress, got the role. And so Sidney called me. He got my number, I guess, from casting. He called me up and he said, "Oh, hello, it's Sidney." And I'm like, yeah, of course it is, because nobody else speaks like that. And he said, "I'm sorry that you're not right for the role." And I said, "Well, I actually know that, but thank you anyway." And he said, "Well, wait, no. There's this other role. It's small, but it's memorable. It's in the beginning. It's with Gene Wilder, and I want you to do it." And I said, "I don't know the role. Can you send it to me?" And so they dropped off the script. I read the script, and because he said, "When you read it, call me back." And I said, "Sure." I mean, he loved actors. He loved actors. And he was very respectful of actors. And he knew that, I mean, I had a good career, you know, and already had a good career. And he knew that I probably wouldn't want to do it. But when I read it, and I went, you know, this is funny. And it's Gene Wilder. And it's Sidney Poitier. And yeah, I think I do. But I had criteria, certain things I wanted to do it. And I knew my agent would never ask for those things. And I would. And so I called Sidney back and I said, "You know, I do want to do it. And for all those reasons I just said. But," and he said, "Oh, it's wonderful, great, wonderful." And I said, "Yes, but I have certain requests." And he said, "Fine, what are they?" And I told him. And it had to do with money and billing and all the things that my agent should have been negotiating, but I knew that they wouldn't. And because of the size of the role, and also I knew that they would tell me not to do the role. So this all took place between Sidney and me, and no agents were involved at that point. And they were involved earlier for Jo Beth Williams. Yeah, she ended up doing that really, and she was wonderful, really wonderful. And I knew my agents would not want me to do the role, and they would not ask for what I was asking for. And so I was really over the top with my asks. And Sidney said, "Okay, so you want this, this, and this, and this, and this." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Fine, done." And that was that. And I was like, it was astounding. It was astounding because if we had put it in the agent's hands, or if we put it into the producer's hands or the casting hand, it wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have gotten what I wanted. And he really wanted me to do it. And he wouldn't have gotten me. I wouldn't have done it. But because it was just the two of us on the phone, I got everything I wanted, and he got what he wanted, which was for me to do that role. And that's how that happened. And he was great. He was great. He was a taskmaster. I'll say that for him. It wasn't easygoing on the set. He had a certain standard, and everybody had to come up to that standard, and fine with me. And he was dealing. We're talking about some major talent, major Hollywood talent, and it was great.
It's funny how you quite literally have rubbed shoulders with most of old Hollywood and new Hollywood.
Yes.
Is there anyone from that you wish you would have gotten the chance to work with but haven't yet? So let's say now, is there anybody you'd love to work with now that's out?
Okay, this is going to be crazy. I'd really like to do a Marvel movie, and I'd really like to work with all of those people on the Marvel movies, because I really admire them, that they can do that. That's the ultimate of make-believe. And they can do it, and they can do it brilliantly. And I would love to work with all those people that do Marvel movies. I'd like to work with Robert Downey Jr. I'd like to work with, oh my God, Patrick Stewart. Anybody in a Marvel movie, pretty much anybody in a Marvel movie, I would like to work with. And I think that maybe we're coming to the end of them. But I really admire everybody who's been in them, who's produced them, who's directed them. I love all that talent. It's just massive amounts of talent. And I just think they're all great. And I'd like very much to work with any of them.
You also worked with Nicolas Cage on one of his early roles, and you were directed by Martha Coolidge in it at a time when female directors were sadly still a bit of a rarity. What was your experience like on that film working under Martha?
You're talking about Valley Girl. Well, female directors are still a minority.
Yeah.
It's better than it was, but I know I direct myself, and I have tried to get a deal directing a film. I haven't succeeded yet, almost, but not quite. And so I'm directing Hollywood radio players and other things that I can just simply hire myself. And it was interesting. That was another thing I was just offered out of the blue. And actually it was my girlfriend called me, Colleen Camp, and said, I'm going to do this movie, and you want to be in it? And I said, well, I don't know. Can I read the script? And so they, she sent a script. I mean, Colleen was just in it and was a friend of Martha's. She wasn't casting. And Colleen's a very, fine actress in her own right, and certainly a big producer now. And we're still friends. Just saw her recently. And so I said, yeah, this seems fun. And she said, well, there's not much money. And I went, okay, seemed like a little bit less fun then. She said, but it's a female director. And I said, it's a what? A female director. And that was like, I was done. It was like, sure. Who is it? She told me, and I never heard of her. She said, she's going to be big. And so that was like we had our 40th anniversary recently of Valley Girl. We had two huge events. One was at a Chinese theater, a Hollywood, very famous theater. And the other one was at Quentin Tarantino's theater, because it's one of his favorite movies. And they were talking about Martha. Martha was there. We were all there, everybody, 21 of us, I think. And how shocking it was that it was a female director at that time. And of course, she went on to direct many, many, many more films. And she also became president of the Directors Guild of America, the DGA, she was the first female president. And so working with a female director was just wonderful. It was just a gift. It was so different. It was just a different sensibility. I loved it. I just loved it. And she's great.
And all of this to say not only have you worked with some of the greats, but I mean, literally, you've been fantastic in so many things yourself. With two Emmy nominations for Long Road Home and Secret Sins of the Father. Let's start by talking about Long Road Home. How did that role come about?
Nobody wanted me for that role because I look a certain way, and it was a character role, and she was supposed to be a migrant farm worker, and nobody wanted me. And I wanted that role utterly desperately. I had heard about it. There was a big, thick book out that it was based on. It really was like very personal to me, just because of family situations back in the 30s. And I wanted that role real bad, and nobody would see me for it and wouldn't offer it to me, wouldn't do anything. They're like, are you kidding? You're not right for this. You're not right for this. She's a migrant farm worker. She's a plain, woman from Oklahoma. And I'm like, I lived in Tulsa. And they're like, yeah, well, you're not right for it. And I called everybody. I mean, I pursued that role. I called everyone. And finally, the casting director, who's somebody I know to this day, and he actually writes about this in his book, but he said, I don't know, but let's give it a go. How plain can you look? What can you do? And I said, I'll do it. Don't you worry. Because I had done it once before in a film, Dirty Little Billy, which was a great
Billy. That was a Billy the Kid movie, like almost like a true account movie, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, Dirty Little Billy.
Yeah,
it was a great film. And I had looked almost like a man. And but so I said to him, I have looked this way before. I can do it again. And so I went and I auditioned for it, and I wore this old dress I bought in the thrift store that looked like a 1930s dress that a poor woman would have worn. Did my hair kind of brown, no makeup at all. And I walked in barefoot, carrying a box. And there was something in the box. And the producer was there, and he kept looking at the box, right? And I didn't even mention the box. I just walked in carrying this box, a large box, and barefoot at CBS. And did my reading, and he said, yeah, really good reading. What's in the box? And I was like, oh, it's just a photograph. I just happen to have it with me. And he was like, well, can I see it? And I'm like, oh, I don't think you will. And I played with him a little bit, made him really want to see it, right? So I pulled out this photograph, which was a George Harrell photograph. If you ever heard of George Harrell, one of the most famous photographers who ever lived. And he had been the unit photographer on Dirty Little Billy. And I had a photograph I still have it. You can't see my hands. It was about 2 feet tall and about a foot wide. It was massive. And it was of me as my character of Burl in Dirty Little Billy. And very downtrodden in the Old West, dirty face, old clothes, whatever. And he was like, who is that? And I said, well, that's me. And he's like, that's not you. I went, oh, yeah, but that is me. And he got really interested. So then I had to go up the food chain because, again, every level, nobody would believe I could play that. And so Mark Harmon, bless his heart, he called me and he said, I'm going to audition with you when you do your next audition. I want you for this role. I know you can do this role. Because he was playing the husband. And he said, I know you can do it. They don't know you can do it, but I know you can do it. So he went with me to every audition. And I think I had about maybe 3. Because again, every level, nobody believed I could do it, right? And then I would go to that next level, network level. And then they would go, oh my God. And I remember at one audition, I was waiting out in the waiting room, doing my barefoot thing in my old beat up dress. And somebody said, okay, where's Lee Purcell? And I said, right over here. And they went, no, no. And I went, yeah, yeah. And then ended up uh, uh, with Mark's support, getting the role. And it was a very important role for me, both emotionally, both career-wise. It was really important for me to prove something to myself and to others. Ended up getting, a Best Actress Emmy nomination for it. And it was very meaningful to me, still is to this day, very meaningful to me.
Did you and Mark have as great chemistry off the set as you did on?
Oh, yeah. We'd known each other for years. Yeah, we knew each other. And that's why he was like, he called me up and said, I'm gonna do this with you because they don't believe it. And I do. And he was just so supportive, on set, off set, so supportive.
What was the hardest scene to film for you in that?
Hardest scene, I don't know. They were all hard. It was a hard piece to do because we really were authentic with that. And I worked on the accent because I'm good at accents, and then I worked with the kids on their accents. And Mark, of course, had his down. And then they gave us, because, we were all city people and actors, and they wanted us to be able to look authentic in the fields. So we were taken to the actual, because we shot in Northern California where all of these things took place in the 1930s. And it was very Grapes of Wrath. And so we were taken to the fields and we were taught how to pick. And that was really something. And they taught Mark and me how to pick artichokes, which artichokes have razor-like leaves on them, and they slice your hands and your arms open. And, I was wearing like torn cloth to protect my arms and my hands. I still got a lot of cuts, right? But, we did that. And plus we're out in the fields, and, it was loaded with pesticides and, smelled like pesticides. And it really gives you a tremendous respect for those who gather our food, on a daily basis for year upon year. And also, relatives of mine back in the day. And so I think that when we shot that scene, the real scene where we shot it, where we were picking, that was a really hard scene to do. Physically, it's very hard out in the just like blazing sun. And we were actually doing what other people do for a living. And we were doing it for film, right? But, we had a tremendous respect for them because we knew how hard it was, because we had been taught. And of course, then we had the privilege of walking away and going to our trailers. And the people who actually do that for a living don't have that. They don't have that privilege. So emotionally, the whole show was very, very difficult on all of us. And but in the end, it was, I think, a great piece of work. I'm very proud of that piece of work on everybody's part, everybody's. And then I got a nomination, and that was icing on the cake.
When did you find out you'd been nominated for the Emmy, and what do you remember about that moment?
You mean the date? I don't know the date.
Yeah.
And
do you remember anything about like how you found out or any of that stuff?
Oh yeah, I remember because, I was in the running. I knew that. And you get up early in the morning, just like people did yesterday, because the Emmy nominations were prime. This is prime time. Emmy nominations were announced yesterday, and every year I go, I remember that day. And I gotten up early, and I was watching it on television, watching the nominations, and they called out my name. And wow, that was something. It's really. I almost fell off the chair. I mean, I was like, oh my God. And it was just a thrill. It was just a thrill. We worked so hard on it. We worked really hard on it. And I was really disappointed that Mark didn't get nominated, but then we found out his name never got submitted. So he wasn't even in the running. And that was really made me mad. It was an accident, because he would have gotten nominated. He was incredible. And so that was a great moment. You have those moments. You don't have them all the time. They're rare. I had another one when I was nominated later. But it's a great thing because you're nominated by your peers. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it isn't. It's one thing to be nominated, say, for something that many, many people vote on. But it's a whole other thing to be nominated by other actors. That is a gift.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. And a special thanks to actress Lee Purcell for joining us. Lee will be back again next week for the next part of our interview. So please tune back in. Stay safe, everyone.